All right, welcome everyone. Hold my Pirke Avos. Pirke Avos, ethics for our fathers, as it is known. Again, want to welcome everyone. Holding by Pirke Avos, ethics for our fathers. We are in chapter 2, Mishna 15. Still in Mishna 15, part 21, and I guarantee there'll be a part 22, 23, 24. I'm sure. We spoke the last number of weeks, first part of the Mishnah, that Rabbi Lezer said, right? They each said three things. Rabbi Lezer said, let your fellow's honor be as dear to you as your own. Do not anger easily. We spoke about anger probably ad nauseum for a number of weeks, different aspects of anger, different things. And now we are going to hit the next part of the Mishnah. Now, the next part of the Mishnah says, repent one day before your death, and warm yourself by the fire of the sages. So we'll see what it means to repent one day before your death. Obviously, person doesn't know, right? Simple thing is that a person doesn't know when they're going to die, right? Essentially, so a person should repent every day, right? That we're going to see. So repenting one day before you die, that the First Yisrael, one of the great commentaries on the Mishnah, explains this has to do with keeping mitzvahs. It's a warning. It's a warning in general about keeping mitzvahs. You're going to say, okay, what does it mean? Right? What is the reference over here about keeping mitzvahs? What is what's the point, so to speak? So the idea is, First rule says, person's heart is closer to wanting to sin than about keeping mitzvahs, right? That I think is pretty obvious, because even though there's a mind to heart conflict, in other words, the mind might know the right thing to do. Today, I wouldn't necessarily say that, because many people today don't have a clue. Don't have a clue what's going on. So I would say that's kind of hard, to know what to do, what the right thing to do is. And the reason I think the reason is very simple, that most people, they don't know what to do, right? So the idea is that a person, since I have a conflict between body and soul, the body wants to go after the physical, soul wants to go after things spiritual. You always have a conflict till the day you die. There'll always be a conflict. Now, since there'll always be a conflict, you have the evil inclination versus the good inclination. If I do the right thing, person does the right thing, they elevate the body, they elevate the soul. If they do the wrong thing, they debase the body, they debase the soul. Constant battle, right? Constant battle. So where is their heart on a daily basis, right? Their heart on a daily basis is doing things that are wrong. That's where the heart is, right? That essentially is where the heart is. It's doing things wrong, because the heart wants you to go after the physical, right? Essentially going after physicality. And seemingly, that'd be a lot more fun. I mean, obviously, if you don't have your head screwed on straight, it'd be a lot more fun, right? Why? Because to sin and to do the wrong thing, think about what people do on a daily basis. I'm not even talking about, grave sins. Even minor sins, right? The grave one's obvious. Immorality, that's a pretty big one. You got, lashon hara, it's a pretty big one. Got more than 30 prohibitions in one shot. You try and tell people, Jewish or non-Jewish, and tell them that, if I know something to be true, let's say everybody knows it, and I know something to be true, I can't repeat it unless I have certain conditions. They're going to tell you you're off your cotton picking head. They're going to say, does it make sense? Not logical. It's why non-Jews don't have to keep the laws of lashon hara. Even though Kaufman would say it's a moral imperative. For sure, it's a moral imperative. So the first thing that the Pharisees Israel over here says is that, we're talking about mitzvahs here, and that a person is more inclined to sin than not to sin. Right? What's the proof? What's the obvious proof? Obvious proof is going back to creation. Why does God destroy the world? What does God say? Right? God says, the end of Parshas Bereshit. Right? Let's quote it here because I've been accused a number of times, never quoted anything. Right? So it's just to answer up those trolls, even though I don't really have to. It's a waste of time, but we'll mention it anyway. And the Torah says, chapter 6, book of Genesis, verse 5. Hashem saw the wickedness of man was great upon the earth. Every product of thoughts of his heart was but evil always. What does that tell you? We're at a major disadvantage. Major disadvantage. Why? Because we have an evil inclination. Evil inclination inside of us, very strong, even though Adam thought it would be a good thing to eat from the tree of knowledge. Because if you eat from the tree of knowledge, you have evil inside you. You have the ability to choose to do good or do bad. So his rationale was, if I do good, I overcome my evil inclination. Exponentially, I elevate my body and my soul. In other words, I do the right thing, I go in the right way. Right? Exponentially. I should get reward exponentially. If I do the wrong thing, right? If a person does the wrong thing, God forbid, what happens? Right? What's going to happen? If you do the wrong thing, exponentially get punished. So God says you're right. Either you elevate the body tremendously in the soul, or God forbid the opposite. Nothing in between. God says, great. You're 100% right. There's only one problem. What's the obvious problem? He didn't create the world for them. He told them specifically not to eat from the tree. So imagine they wouldn't have eaten from the tree, would have gone into the Garden of Eden, creation established the way God wanted, everything's done, that's it. The end of the world. But that's not what happened. God had to go to plan B. He understood there's a plan B. And there would be a plan B. God has to throw him out of the garden. Simple reason. Because there's the tree of life. Man eats from the tree of life. What happens? What's going to happen? They'll live forever. Fame, right? They're going to live forever. Can't live forever here. How do you get atonement? Death is part of atonement, not full atonement. You might have to pay. You might have to pay later, right? In the next world. You might have to pay in this world. You might have to pay both. We're going to see. Right? We are going to discuss this. I don't know if we'll get to it today. But we are going to hit this. So, death never should have been, not a Jewish concept. The Zohar states, person dies as the first person they see is Adam. And they say to him, because of you had to go through this process, and he nods, that's part of his atonement. So he's trying to reinvent the wheel. God calls him a heretic. The Gemara says God calls him a heretic. Very interesting. He's the greatest of his creation. Right? Adam was the greatest of God's creation. Almost a spiritual being in a human body. As we know it. But what happened here? Fact that, Adam's called the heretic, the greatest of creation. Again, simple explanation. What happened? He didn't do what God said. He thought he knew better. And God agreed with him. In the sense that, if you do the right thing, so exponentially you get reward. You overcome evil inclination. If you do the wrong thing, exponentially you're in trouble. You're in serious trouble. God said, I didn't create the world for that, but okay, now that you did it, I got to throw you out of the Garden of Eden, right? You got the tree of life there. You got to die, right? A person has to die in this world. So we're here to toil. We're here to struggle, the Ramchal says. That's what life's all about. Challenges. Some people have more challenges, less challenges. Yeah. But what's he saying over here? He's saying, I understand better than God. God told him not to do it. The only mitzvah he told him. Only command he gave him. Don't eat from the tree. Brought death to the world. Now, didn't God know what he's going to do? Sure. Did he want him to do it? No. But at the end of the day, what happened here? And this happens a lot, even by us, at a different level. God agreed with him that exponentially you do the right thing, right? You elevate the body and the soul tremendously. You do the wrong thing, just the opposite. God agreed with him. So why did he call him a heretic? Why did he call him a heretic? He called him a heretic because he didn't listen. Because he thought he knew better. He wanted to expedite things. And this happens all the time. All the time. There's a lot of sheker, a lot of falsehood in the world. Tremendous amount of falsehood in the world. Falsehood sells. Tremendously sells. Yeah, it's easy to fall in. It's easy to be, it's easy to be lied to. Someone told me many years ago, took classes from someone, we could promise them the world, about conversion and this and that, took them for a ride. Person's total liar. Total fraud. Makes good people like me or other people, gives them a bad name. It's a trust issue, I get it. No question. And someone says they can produce and they can't. Well, they're a big problem. Or they just lie. There are people out there that don't care about integrity. Remember in South America, everything going down with, wine that was being watched by, or at least the beginning, was being watched by non-Shomer Shabbos Jews, right? He's got no believability. Someone doesn't keep Shabbos, as a Jew. How can he watch wine? That renders the wine, no one can drink it. No Jew can drink it. I lost my job because of it. Other things, I asked my Rebbe, called him up. I said, what happened to integrity? Where's the integrity? Well, I've spoken about this a lot. That, the fact that, okay, you want to, play games in your own house? Give that to your kids or whatever? It's your choice. Right? You want to hold to that standard, that low standard or forbidden standard, let's even say better. You want to do that? Okay, you're a fool. You're a fool for doing it for your own family. Very good. Your choice. You want to sell it to the masses? Even though the person lied, he's not getting paid for it, it wasn't true. Because someone else at the same time said he's taking away his livelihood. So why is the other person saying that he never got a penny from it? He's lying, obviously. Or someone's lying. Right? But that's my Rebbe. Where's integrity? Where's the integrity left? He's like, welcome to the real world. This is the real world. This is what people do. Not everybody, obviously. But there are people who do underhanded things. People misrepresent. They don't care. People lie, they connive, misrepresent. I mean, it's pretty incredulous. Tell the story. Story told many times. Guy goes to one of, an Orthodox Jew supposedly goes to one of the Torah giants, the last generation, tells them, I got certain fabrics, right? Certain fabric, grade A, grade B, grade C. I want to sell it as grade A. This rabbi looks at him and says, I don't understand the question. It's Geneva. It's stealing, right? Or let's say better. Before he got to that, a friend of mine was there, at the time was asking the question. He's like, I don't understand the question. So the person, obviously thinking this great rabbi is much older, which he is. Maybe he didn't hear so well. So he told it over slower, but louder. Yeah, what did he say? I have grade A, grade B, grade C. All right. He said, I got the point. I understand. The rabbi says, I understand what you want to do. It's Geneva. It's stealing. Torah prohibition. Misleading. It's fraud. Everything to boot. He says, how's that permissible? How in the world can you think that's okay? The person turns around and says, Rabbi, it's business. What do you mean it's business? It's business to defraud people. It's business to lie. Start a lot in real estate. I thought real estate was bad, but pretty much anything. Anyone can try, if you're a middle person, let's say, and people want to sidestep you, they want to make more money, more profit. But they don't get the deal without you if you're a middle person, right? So why are they going to try and circumvent you? Because they want to make more money. Like, I was involved in real estate. Someone said, why do I need you? Why should I pay you? I go find your own deals. You're an investor. Good, go find your own. I'm bringing this to the table. I shouldn't get paid. Doesn't matter if I made one phone call. Doesn't matter if I send out one email. Doesn't matter. I brought you the deal. You got to pay. Anyone who wouldn't sign a non-disclosure, which not necessarily worth the paper it's written on, but, it builds trust. Any person who would never sign it, you send it to them, they wouldn't sign it. They wouldn't deal with them. They're like, what, you don't trust me? I said, sign it. Not a question of trust or not trust. You want to sign it? Sign it. You don't want to sign it? I'll go elsewhere. That's what happened. So where's the integrity? Where's the strive for truth? The money corrupts. One of the things I learned in ninth grade in social studies, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yeah. Bala Mea, Bala Dea. The person has money, he has 100, everyone wants to listen to him. Right? In other words, the person who's got money. People are poor, unless they're like big rabbinic scholars or whatever, they ain't listen to them. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not even going to get into that. But their opinion's not taken into account, right? If they're not holding somewhere in the world, either as a rabbinic scholar or they have money or whatever, or they have some level of expertise they need. But if you don't have money, why? There are four people consider like they're dead. One of the person's blind, one has saras, one doesn't have children, one doesn't have money. Right? One of them's dirt poor. Now the question is what level of poverty that means. Doesn't really matter. It's not really the point of this discussion. Yeah, but someone who's poor, why? Why are they considered like that? Because they need other people to help them. I'm not talking about someone, who needs a little bit of help here, a little bit of help there, or, to get over the top, whatever it may be. I'm talking about someone's got no money. They're poverty stricken. A lot of people like that. Some more, some less, doesn't really matter. But you think for 1 second anyone's asking their opinion on something important? No one's asking their opinion because nobody cares. Nobody cares about their opinion because they're nothing. They don't look at them as having any value. Now, it could be also, people have less intelligence and not as learned or whatever. Yeah, I can take what they say. It depends what it is. But something you're going to take really seriously. You're not going to ask them their opinion unless they're an expert in that. You're not going to ask them. Yeah, these people look down upon. I'm not saying it's right. Definitely not saying it's right. These people are harassed. When people coming for money, whether it's schools, other things, they want money for, and they're in dire straits. Nobody's asking their opinion. Nobody cares about their opinion. So it's like they're not here. Anyone's ever been in that position, they know. Even if they have strong opinions, even, if their opinions are valid, no one's really asking for them. Nobody wants them. Yeah. So, that's kind of a hard thing to take. And if you've seen it, you've been around it, you're like, why is that, why are they taking that person's opinion serious because they have money? Seen it a lot by, let's say professional athletes. Some people still think the world is flat. Bunch of idiots. Okay. All right. Seen it by actors, actresses, it's somebody, can't even read Hebrew, has got his opinion what Judaism is. Anyone gonna take what the person says seriously? Just because he's got money? Should be irrelevant. Totally should be irrelevant. Yeah. So essentially, we live in a physical world. This is what the Ferris Zero is telling you. You live in a physical world, and your heart is closer wanting to go into the physical world to do physical things. Now, these physical things, we're talking about things that are forbidden. So we're surrounded by it. I'm not going to say, can't live in a cave. I got to live in this world. Yeah, you have to know how to live in this world. You have to know how to navigate this world. Now, unless you're really steeped in the Torah and mitzvah, in general, and your head is screwed on straight, you see the bigger picture, even when things look very dark and dreary and things are extremely hard or seem impossible, then either you get it or you don't get it. And most people are not going to get it. They're for sure not going to get it. Now, simple reason could be because they get beaten down in life. And life is very hard for many reasons. Right? Whether it's family, whether it's livelihood, whether it's health, any of these things. Right? There's a lot of things people struggle with, on a regular basis. A lot of things. So they'll do whatever they can to get out of whatever the struggle is. And sometimes they may do things they shouldn't have done. Or as English would say, it's a little bit dodgy. Why is it dodgy? Because someone's in dire straits. Sometimes they just do whatever it takes to survive, even if it's forbidden. But but we're not even talking that far. We're talking about the fact that a person would rather enjoy life, quote unquote, have fun, and do things that their heart tells them to do. Because the heart is much closer to wanting to do bad than to do good. Now, we have proof from the Torah itself. God himself says. God himself says, where's the person's heart? Right? Again, let's quote it. Anybody missed it? Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. Hashem saw the wickedness of man was great upon the earth. Every product of the thoughts of his heart was but evil always. If I didn't have Torah, at all, how would a person stay in the right narrow path? How would a person know how to navigate life? How would a person know, how to deal with what life throws at you? You wouldn't. You don't have an anchor. You need that anchor. Right? It's like being on a boat, no motor here. You go out in the middle of the ocean, you take your rudder, you throw it overboard. Right? You don't have a motor here, it's a sailboat, let's say. Yeah, where's the boat gonna go? Wherever the wind takes it. Just go around in circles, potentially. Right? Because it's got no rudder. The rudder for us today, the anchor today is what? It's Torah. That's the only thing. Even if there's a little bit of truth in other things, it's not fully true. The only thing that's been proven throughout the generations is Torah itself. And if you find a flaw in it, one flaw, you throw the whole book out just like anything else. One. All you need to do is find one. Because if I find one flaw, that's it. Why would I listen to the rest of the book? You'll say, well, if it's really God, God doesn't make mistakes. Doesn't even make one mistake. So, the first thing is, says Israel, a person's heart is close to wanting to do the wrong thing. If you didn't have Torah, you go that direction. Some people will say, I have my own moral compass. Very good. You got your own moral compass. Okay. So what does that help you? How does that help? How does that help having your own moral compass? Doesn't morality change? Isn't morality relative? Changes? Why does it change? Good question. Very good question. Right? Famous parable by the Dubna Maggid. Dubna Maggid gives the parable of a king walking in the forest, and the king sees arrows shot in bullseyes in every tree. He says, wow, this is unbelievable. I got to get this marksman, teach my men how to shoot. Finds the marksman and says, yeah, it's very easy. Very easy. Right? And he asks him, can you teach my men how to shoot? He says, sure. I take my bow and arrow and I shoot a arrow in the air. When it hits a tree, I draw a bullseye around it. That's morality. Morality changes. Why does morality change? Anybody's guess. Anyone know? Trivia question, we'll throw it out there. In the States, 40s, 50s, earlier, men wore hats. Men wore hats, when they were outside. What stopped? Where did the custom for men in the secular world to stop wearing hats? By JFK. JFK took off his hat, and that changed everything. For that. Other things changed. But if you look in the past, go to our parents' or our grandparents' generation. What they see today, they'd be rolling around if they're still alive. If they're dead, they'd be rolling around in their graves. What they see today. Because even let's say my parents' generation, they'll say, they wouldn't do this, or they wouldn't conceive of doing what's going on today out in the world. They're going to say it was a prude generation, people doing things anyway, behind closed doors. Could very well be. But it wasn't as open as it is today. So someone told me a number of years ago, this is what people do. Thought what I would do. Yeah, but that's his generation. So the problem is when the parents start thinking like their kids or like their grandkids. It should be just the other way around. They should want to emulate the parents of the grandparents. Right? He tells a story. When he was much younger, his mother came to visit. Mother came to visit Israel. They're on a bus. They hear some secular Israeli kids say, Abba Sheli Chamor. My father's a donkey. And they were like shaken to the core. They're like, a Jewish kid? An Israeli to boot, speaks Hebrew, could say that about a parent? What happened to the values? Where'd the values go? That a child could speak about that about a parent? What happened to belief in Torah? What happened to all that? Thrown out the window. They were shaken. Today someone says that, it's like, oh, like someone told me many years ago. They had a teenage kid. And their kid said something. Like, lash back at a parent in front of other people. So I asked, you're not going to say something? You're not going to reprimand? No, that's what kids do. That's how kids react. So, anyone's ever had teenage kids, okay. Not easy to raise teenage kids. True. That's the norm. A parent will say that's the norm. Why is that the norm? What, you're not going to discipline? You're not going to say anything? They show respect? So back to our topic here, doing the wrong thing, we're a lot closer to. Unless we have a compass. That compass is what is Torah. That's the compass. You don't have Torah, I don't care how intelligent you are, you lost. I'm talking about Jews, non-Jews, all the more so. If they're not following the Noahide laws, if they don't want to convert, they're totally lost. Totally lost. I'm not even talking about people being on idolatry and other things. They have no anchor. They have nothing. So where's their moral compass? Haven't people ever heard, people will tell you, friends, colleagues, whatever, they'll say how moral they are and this and that. But think about it. Very easy to break them down and to show really they're not. Do they hide things from the IRS? Oh, that's different. They take too much money. They take too many taxes. So what if it's true? Maybe it is true. That gives you a right to steal. That's stealing. No question about it, stealing. They pull the plug on grandpa or their uncle or who knows what. That's not murder. That's for sure not murder. That's mercy. People justify things all the time. They'll think, oh, they're this, they're that. They're good people. Let's say better. They're good people. Being a good person, quote unquote, first of all, what's your definition of good? Now, I would never use this as an argument because they'll get lost once you say it. And a person will say, well, Hitler thought he was good. Yamach Shemoy V'Zichron. May his name be blotted out, may rot wherever he is. Think Stalin thought he was good. Pol Pot thought he was good. Crazy people. So where's the definition? Where's that definition? They may be nice people. They may have helped others. Different things. Very good. Are they good in God's eyes? That's the most important thing. Everything else is irrelevant. Are they doing what God wants or not? People can say this person is very philanthropic, this person this person that. But in God's eyes, they spit in his eye, in God's face every second of every day. How can they be good? You need a definition. I had somebody, that once they saw where this was going, they're like, I don't know how we got to this. We're stopping this conversation right now. Because I have to. People don't have a moral compass. Their moral compass is whatever my heart tells me. Whatever my heart tells me, that's my moral compass. It's not a moral compass. Because it can change. It can change by the breeze of the winds. It can change by nothing. Just so happens the person had this thought or saw something, read something, who knows what, and all of a sudden the whole mentality changed. They read an article in Wikipedia. Very good. That changed the whole way they think. Kind of crazy. Right? 100% crazy, I would say. Does it make sense? That's what it means. Morality is relative. It changes. Never should. If something's forbidden, it's forbidden. If it's permissible, it's permissible. If it's quote unquote a legal loophole, okay. It's a legal loophole, means it's legal. Now, you could ask, if it's a legal loophole, am I allowed to rely on it? Moral issue. Who says I have to go beyond the letter of the law in such a case? It's legal. If it's legal, there's no problem. What's the issue? Shouldn't be an issue. Because over here, when a person does something wrong, first case is they don't even know they're doing anything wrong. This is the hardest thing to repent for. You can't repent if you didn't think you did anything wrong. I mean, if you find out later it's wrong and you repent, that's one thing. But if a person does something they don't think is wrong, why are they going to repent? Why in the world should they repent? They didn't do anything wrong. They don't think they did anything wrong. Right? That can't repent for, seemingly. Because the things you did wrong, you know you did wrong, good. The things you don't know you did wrong, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? What are you going to answer? I didn't do anything wrong. They don't see it. Or they justify. Or they'll justify why it's not wrong. It doesn't matter. The point is, when a person sins, that's where the heart wants to go. But you're given a good inclination also, okay? But where's the heart going to want to go after struggling, trying to keep Torah mitzvahs, feeling like an outcast, and all kinds of things? We're doing something that's not right. It seems like a lot more fun. Makes sense? And that's the way the inclination. Well, I got an 18, 19-year-old kid tell me, come on, Rabbi, I'm holding better 95% of the world. World Jewry, you got to cut me some slack. So my answer was, what if God thinks you're not? Or even if he thinks you are, let's say. What if you have greater potential? Like, who are you comparing yourself to? Most of the Jewish world can't read the alphabet. It's like they're living in Sodom, so you're holding better than Sodom. Very good. You're holding better than Sin City. Great. You want to tell me you're God's gift to the world here? I was telling someone last night, coming back from synagogue, my explanation of Psalms chapter 34. That what King David says, you stay away from speaking evil. And it says, Sur me rava yaseh tov. Go away from evil and do good. So my explanation, again, take it with a grain of salt, but my explanation was, in this world, if a person stays away from evil, guaranteed you have a portion of the world to come. That's all you have to do, stay away from evil. You stay away from evil, you're in a good position for the next one. I say tov, but to do good, that's a bonus. That's extra. So someone will say, come on, you're being cynical here. Yeah. It's one thing to stay away from evil, but you're also going to do good. You're going to help others. You're going to do acts of loving kindness. The two do not go hand in hand. Necessarily. But in this generation, as long as you do that, you stay away from evil, you're good. You should be good. If you're doing it the right way. But the heart, what the eye see, the heart covets. The heart wants. Even if it doesn't make sense according to the brain. That's why a lot of times there's a mind to heart disconnect. The mind might be telling you it's probably not a good thing to do. If it understands what right and wrong is. But the heart is telling you otherwise. The heart is telling you, doesn't really matter. Life is fleeting. Eat, drink, and marry, lest tomorrow I die. Enjoy life. You're only here once. You're only living once. You got to enjoy as much as you can. But we justify things all the time. All the time. We spoke Lashon Hara against somebody because they deserve it. And let's say they do. Cause us damage, this and that. So let's say person spoke Lashon Hara. Okay. Where it's forbidden, we'll make it easy. Where it's forbidden over here. What does the justification matter? What does the justification matter? Justification doesn't matter. If it's wrong, it's wrong. After 120 years, God's going to judge us. He's going to show us what we've done. He's for sure going to show us what we've done. Right? 2 movies, what you did and what your potential was. Now, you can't deny anyone's had an out-of-body experience. First thing they always say, man, woman, child, doesn't matter, Jew, non-Jew, they see their life flash before their eyes. Means they see everything they've done in their life. Now, they can't deny they had their hand in the cookie jar. Their hand is there, the picture's there, right? Very graphic. You had your hand in the cookie jar. Now, you can try and say why you did. You can try and say what was behind it. Try and justify it, and God will say yay or nay, but you can't deny it. Just like we're recording right now. Can't say, oh, he never said that. Depends what the context was. People are very good at, splicing things. Say, oh, see what it said over here. But you missed the whole beginning, and you missed the whole after. Right? So you're taking one thing totally out of context. A lot of people do that. I'm saying it's right. When people do it, So a person could be justified. I'm talking about where it's forbidden to speak Lashon Hara here. There's a bigger thing. Not only there's so many prohibitions, but what about the idea, the fact that, okay, this happens, this 100% happens. So what did God do? God put this person in your path. Okay, why? I can't answer. Maybe just to work on this. So what happened? You lashed out, you said things you shouldn't have said when it was forbidden. This goes all back to the whole idea of the dog and the stick. Yeah, the Chosel Vavos brings out in Shar B'Tachon, the gate of faith and belief in God. Person hits a dog with a stick, not I'm recommending it. Who's the dog go after? The stick. Not the person wielding the power of the stick. So we do the same thing. Someone damages us, whatever it may be, we're out yelling and screaming at them. That's our reaction. That's our knee-jerk reaction. First reaction. When the Chosel Vavos says, you should go out there and hug them and say, I want to thank you for working on my anger. Now, people say, come on. This is only for the righteous. This is only for the tzaddikim. No. He's telling you this is for everybody. And you got to thank him for giving you that opportunity to work on it. See, it doesn't matter. Nobody's, we're not going to get judged after we die. Why would you like this person? Why would you like this righteous person unless you have the potential? Unless you have the real potential. God's not going to ask you how come you weren't like this or like that. He's going to ask you, why'd you do what you did? According to your level. Not going to hold you to a higher pedestal. But if you had greater potential, all right, there's something we have to give to our kids also. Even if a kid does something wrong, you got to build them up and say, you're so much better than this. Why would you do such a thing? This is not who you are. This is not what you represent. Ramosha Schneider, I told this over also today. Number of people. He had a disagreement with Cheskel Abramsky. Cheskel Abramsky was head of the Beis Din in London many, many years ago. And eventually came, to retire and live in the land of Israel. Torah giants of the last generation, nothing to talk about. So they had a disagreement. Ramosha Schneider built up his students to say they could be the next Rebbe Akiva Eiger. They could be the next Rav Chaim Brisker. Talking about like Torah giants. If they apply themselves, they work hard. They could be like, whoever. People would say, what are you talking about? I wasn't given Rebbe Akiva Eiger's head. I didn't have the strength of Rav Chaim Brisker. Yeah. So Moshe Schneider said we have to strive for something. We have to want to be something, some level. Baruch Ber of Kamenetz, and they had the yeshiva in Kamenetz. Baruch Ber once said, he said, I strive to be Rebbe Akiva Eiger. And I ended up being Baruch Ber. And then Baruch Ber said, if I strive to be Baruch Ber, I would have been nothing. Nothing. You got to strive for greatness. My Rebbe would say, you got to think big. Because if you think small, you end up small. If you think big, you might not end up big, but you won't end up small. A person's going to have a dream. What do they want? And then, how am I going to reach it? Now, there's going to be failure along the way, no question. Failure could stop a person trying to do it. Many, many stories, people invented things. Failed the first time, second time, fourth time, fifth time. They didn't give up. Something told them not to give up. Other people may give up. And there would be inventions we don't have. And technology we don't have. That's how you learn, by making mistakes. But you have to want something. We live in a generation, nobody wants nothing. They just want everything to come easy. Make a lot of money, no work. That's a great idea. Still trying to figure out how to do that. Doesn't work that way, obviously. Since the curse of Adam, and then we have to work by the sweat of our brow. Doesn't come easy. Tell me some people, inherit a lot of money, this, that, okay. But for most people, they struggle. A lot of people struggle. Some more, some less. A lot of other things going on. That's not the point. There's no work ethic today. There's very little. Again, some places have it more. I'm just overgeneralizing. People can take me to task for that. People are lazy. That's the bottom line. People are lazy. When things come hard, imagine a person doing a crossword puzzle, or a person's playing Sudoku, and you get stuck. Now, some people want the challenge. They'll put it, they'll put it aside. They'll think about it, this, that. Other people will say, okay, where's the answer sheet? The answers are in the back. Let me see what the answer is. They don't want to work. They don't want to think. Thinking is hard. Thinking takes time. Thinking takes concentration. I remember growing up, I heard a quote, 1% of the people think, 4% think they think, 95% rather die than think. A lot of truth to that. They're real thinkers today. Real philosophers today. People can't sit for 20 minutes by themselves. Imagine, one of my rabbis told me he helped invent, happened to be brilliant in Torah, brilliant in science and other things, helped invent plastic bottles. Right? Years and years and years ago. And he said, he's in the same room with a lot of people, scientists, whatever. These people couldn't sit for more than 10 minutes. They go out, have a cup of coffee, have a cigarette, this, that. They couldn't sit there and work it out. They had to do, I'm not talking about people, ADHD or whatever. They couldn't do it. And he'd been trained to sit, when you're sitting and learning, you don't move. You need to get a book or a reference or whatever. You got the text in front of you. You're plowing through it. You're trying to, you're throwing out ideas, this, that. You're trying to get to what it means and what the point is. Yeah. Some things can be more complex, less complex. But the bottom line is you're glued to a chair. That's where you're glued to. And you're working it out. You're working out all the details. Does this fit in? Is that part of the puzzle? It's not part of the puzzle. How's it all fit together? And the whole disagreement. Why does this one say not that way? This one says the other way. It's complex. But people want things easy. Things are not easy. Learning is hard. Think an old Jew wants to convert, or secular Jew coming back to Judaism. There are concepts that are hard. That you really got to think. You got to analyze. You got to know what to do. Well, that's what people need. That's what you need to do. That's what develops the mind. That's what makes the mind not atrophy. I saw an article years ago. There was a study done that if you don't stimulate the brain, they didn't prove it 100%. But they were saying if you don't, work on a daily basis trying to stimulate the brain, your brain can turn to mush when you're older, i.e. get Alzheimer's, dementia. Now, that could happen, even if you have the greatest brain. Been working on yourself for years. It could also happen. Okay. Right? Nobody knows what it's caused from. Once it's a certain point, you can't bring it back. I mean, it's tragic. But at the same time, there's a lot of truth to this. Person just sits, on their phone watching things, this, that, the brain atrophies. It makes it harder to learn. I know somebody once said he's learning with somebody, and he can tell, this person's very bright, very, very bright. And he said he can tell if a person watched something the night before or not. How can he tell? Because they're not there. There's something about them that's different. They can't think straight. They can't think like they used to. Why? Because their brain's elsewhere. Their mind is elsewhere. You're going to say, you got to focus, and it's a lot harder. And then, you're right. 100%. So I had people, tell me years ago, like, oh, you're sitting learning these ancient texts all day. You want to do it? It wouldn't last more than 10 minutes. Wouldn't last more than an hour. taxing on the brain. Gemara says clear. The more a person learns, it taxes the brain, makes you tired. Because you're using as many brain cells as you can, try and understand a godly text. So again, what's more interesting here? To veer off the path and do what you want, give in to all your desires, or try and crack the books and understand what God wants from you. That's a lot harder. It's like you can eat, chocolate and cake and all these fattening things, or you can have seaweed and bread. Right? What is someone going to choose? Of course, they're going to choose the stuff that tastes good. I mean, you can make bread taste good to a certain point. I don't know about seaweed. These other things got all these chemicals in it. Makes it much more desirable. Makes sense. But in the end, if you don't exercise, you don't eat right, it's going to kill you. But it doesn't matter. Because even things that a person knows are bad for them, it's still too strong of desire to do. I mentioned before about cigarettes. Cigarettes very hard to quit. Anyone's ever smoked. It's good reason, because what's in cigarettes, nicotine is what is addictive. Well, the tobacco companies got sued up the gazoo years ago. Because of that. So everyone's heard someone speak, like 45 minutes. A doctor speaking about the dangers. You're talking 60 years ago, much more than that, 70, 80 years ago. Yeah, and this is before everything came out about how bad cigarettes were. The doctor gives this whole lecture about how bad cigarettes are. 10 minutes after the lecture, he lights up a cigarette. So if you asked him, like, what are you doing? You just spoke for 45 minutes saying how bad it is to smoke, and you're lighting up a cigarette. So he said, I know it's going to cost me years of my life. I know 100% how bad it is, and I know it's going to cost me years of my life. So the doctor said, even so, even though I know it's bad for me, I'm not going to give it up. It's still enjoyable to give up. It's going to kill you. You know how dangerous it is. It's mind-boggling. Yeah. So we convince ourselves that, I'll just look a little bit at this, or I'll just do a little bit of that, or they don't think it's going to spiral out of control. And they don't even think a little bit here, a little bit there. Look at the rest of the world's doing. I'm not even doing that, things that are necessarily so bad. So let's say in the bigger scheme of things, that's true. But what does that do to a person? What that does is it dulls the spirit. Because basically it says when a person sins, the Mishna Pirke Avos says, we'll see it, I don't know, when I'm about 97. Mitzvah goreres, mitzvah vera goreres avera. Person does the mitzvah, causes them want to do other mitzvahs. In other words, if you go in the right direction, you get inspired, you want to stay in that direction. Person does the wrong thing, they want to continue doing the wrong thing. It's a lot more fun. Yeah. So when the person sins, what does it do? Not only it gets them to sin more, it's going to continue them in that wrong direction. It's going to do something else as well. It's going to take out the enjoyment of doing mitzvahs. Right? In other words, it's going to cause them, you're going to say, what, I want to sit and learn? It's so hard. It's breaking my head. There's a lot more fun. It's going to want them to have more fun. I'm not even talking about doing worse things. Just doing the same thing. Over and over, this and that. Right? That's going to cause them to what? To dull the mind. To dull the spirit. To not want to learn. And that weakens a person's resolve to want to keep mitzvahs. It cools the fire of wanting to keep Torah. So a person will say, isn't it true that, we're not machines? I can't sit and learn 24/7. I need to take breaks, whatever, okay? But if you go in that other direction, then you resolve to keep mitzvahs is much harder. I'm not even talking about you're in the wrong environment. That's another issue. Yeah, but you're lazy. You're lazy. So essentially, what does it do? It dulls the spirit, it cools the fire of wanting to keep Torah. Because these other things are a lot more enjoyable. Now, can it be I can love Torah and I can enjoy Torah and, always want to continue to learn, day in and day out? Sure. You're going to have a certain mentality. You got to think of the bigger picture, not just what you're going through. But when you do things that go against it, when you do things that cool your jets, so to speak, and cools the fire, the enthusiasm of wanting to keep Torah and mitzvahs, this is what happens. This is exactly what happens. You want to keep doing more of the other stuff. You learn less Torah. I'm not going to say you're going to go totally off, but you're not going to learn as much at all. Now, once the person's already deep in, it's much harder to fight because you've been doing this for so long, right? Bad habits are hard to break. We are, we do certain things. We're creatures of habit. True. Very, very true. But we have to start somewhere. Because if a person gives in, it's going to take them further away. Now, the evil inclination, it's got a lot of time. He doesn't care. He'll wait. He'll wait over here. He'll say, if I don't get you today, I'll get you tomorrow. If I don't get you tomorrow, I'll get you the next day. But that cools off the desire. It cools off the person wanting to learn and go in the right path. It's exactly what it does. Even if a person wants to take a break, okay. But you got to get back to what you were doing. Because if you ask someone, how long did you study for? I studied for 2 hours. Now, did you really study 2 hours straight? So, well, I studied for 50 minutes, I took a 10-minute break. And then I studied another 15 minutes, and I took a 10-minute break. So really, you didn't learn for 20 minutes, right, out of 2 hours. So you learned, for an hour and 40 minutes. Okay. But you didn't learn for 2 hours. There's something about being constant. That's the famous idea by Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva comes home after 12 years, and he overhears by the window, he's about to knock on the door. He overhears his wife talking to someone and says, and then the wife says, if my husband was here right now, I'd tell him to go back for another 12 years. He turned around, took all his students, and went back. Everyone asked the question, why didn't he go and say hi? Hi to his wife, hi to his kids. They haven't been around for 12 years. So what's the answer? 12 and 12 is not 24. Had he stayed there, he had some coffee, he had some cake, and he was there for a few days, this and that. It's not constant. It's not constant. He wouldn't have been as great as he was. It's hard to imagine. By us today, that wouldn't be an issue. We're not holding that level. But you can't. The point here is, can't let your guard down. You can never let your guard down. Once you let your guard down, you get lukewarm, and then the evil inclination has you. Then the evil inclination plays you. Very easy to fall in. So the idea is, I got to keep going. I got to keep striving. I can't sit back and wait. Doesn't matter. You got to make a living. You got to do other things. That's fine. Your mentality is to be focused on Torah at whatever level. That has to be your mentality. You have to be all in. If you're not all in, it won't stick. And even if you are all in, the evil inclination is going to come up with all kinds of things to try and throw you out, to make life almost unbearable in whatever level. And then when that happens, what do? You say, God, you're the one in charge here. I don't know what you want. I know I need to be better. But your mentality is, and the mantra is, you are the one in charge. I can't do anything without you. You're in charge. and God throws you a curveball, you say, okay, thank you very much. I know you're going to take me out of this. I know you got the power to do it. And it can happen in ways, as we always say, you never expect. Never. But the problem is you give into these things even a little bit, they could take hold. Doesn't mean a person doesn't need a vacation. They might be burnt out, other things. Okay. But if you start slipping, it's a very slippery slope over here. Because once you start doing certain things, it's hard to stop. Because a lot of these things, you're going to say, what's the problem? So I took 10 minutes, I took 15 minutes, I took 20 minutes, whatever. This is enjoyable to me. You're right. Is it good for you? That's the question you always have to ask. Is this something that's going to help me in Torah mitzvahs? Is it going to help me grow spiritually or not? That's the question. And if you have a doubt, you're not sure, you have to ask your local Orthodox rabbi, or don't do it until you get clarity. Because our clarity, we're biased against ourselves. We're going to say it's going to benefit me. This is a good thing. It could be totally the wrong thing. Many ways it could be totally the wrong thing. We get sucked in. Because it's very easy for us to rest on our laurels. Very easy. Even we just knew. Even just knew coming into Judaism, whether you want to convert to be a Noahide or whatever it is. Why? Because it's very easy to slip in your old ways. It's very easy also to say, come on, the rest of Jewry, very few people are doing this. And they're not as dedicated. Why do I have to be all in? Why is it all about not having fun? Because you're not focused. It's hard. It's one of the three things that takes a lot of hardship to acquire. One of them is Torah. One of them is Eretz Yisrael, right, to acquire the land of Israel. And one of them is Olam Haba, is the next one. Torah is a hard thing to acquire. King Solomon himself says in Proverbs, you want Torah? You want the most important thing? Right? The most important thing is going to be more valuable than diamonds, rubies, and all that. That's going to be the most important thing. Right? Meaning, Torah is going to be more valuable than that. And because it's going to be more valuable than that, got to work hard. Right? Certain things come easier than others. But on a whole, doing it's, day in and day out. Could a person get burnt out? They could get burnt out. Could get burnt out if you're not focused. You're going to love what you do at all times, no matter what happens. You're going to say, but life happens. And stuff happens. And stuff is hard. You're right. But you can't say like this, 19-year-old kid says, I'm holding better than most of the world Jewry, even if it's true. So you got an ego now. You think you're better. But again, who are you comparing to? You're comparing to people who don't know anything about Torah. They can't read Hebrew. So you're going to say, oh, I'm so much better. I'm so much greater than them. They don't know anything. You're right. They don't know anything. And you compare to other people who are doing the right thing. Where are you on that scale? Out of 1,000 people. Yeah. Are you in the top 20? I don't think you're in the top 20. Are you in the top 100? I don't think so. You're on a much lower level. Compared to other people, you're way up here. Very good. So what? Doesn't mean anything. Because at the end of the day, God's going to say you had certain potential, you didn't reach it. And what's the reason you didn't reach it? You're lazy. That's the reason. Not you had, brain difficulties, other things. You were lazy. You simply didn't want it. You didn't want it as bad. Because there's no such thing. Someone comes in a Torah mitzvah they don't get. They don't get something out of it. But you got to want it. You got to desire it. And then God opens up doors. God opens up your mind. He opens up doors. Because you got to show you want it. You can't just, put a book on your head and say it's going to go in through osmosis. You got to work. Torah is about work, about changing the way we think. It's about changing bad character traits, even if we've been doing it for years and years. That's what it is. Ain't no one giving it to us on a platter. You got to strive. At the very least, you got to want it. Most people don't want it. Most people just want to throw it in the garbage. And other people, even if they're going through the motions, that's what they're doing. They have 2 feet in the secular world, a quarter of a foot in the religious world, even if they keep Shabbos to whatever extent. They'll get credit for that. 100% they'll get credit for that. But where are they holding in the world spiritually? And Rebbe brought something down very interesting. Right, in this week's part we just read. Brought down from Rabbi Wassim. Shem Yikam Damo is one of the Torah giants of the last generation, the head of the Yeshiva Baranovich. He was a famous student of the Chofetz Chaim. And one of the things he said, he was talking to people that were working, giving them chizuk, giving them strength, and he said, it's not enough to be a former balaboth. It's not enough to be, a religious, someone who works. Why? Because even if you work, you still have an obligation to learn when you don't work. Right? Again, it's more for men than for women, right? But you have an obligation to work to learn. So they say, okay, learn a little bit here, a little bit there, whatever. Rabbi Chaim Wasserman said, and this is also brought down by Chaim Brisker and others, and actually the Baal Tanya, right? The first Lubavitcher Rebbe as well, and the laws of learning Torah. He said like this. If that's your goal, you're in trouble, because a parent has an obligation to educate their child. Because the Torah says in the Shema, V'shinantam livanecho, you got to teach your child. You got to be diligent in teaching them, literally. Right? Teaching your child. Very good. You got to be diligent. Says Rabbi Chanan, being diligent means you encourage them not to be a from or bala boss. Even if they're not going to learn Torah full time for however many years. You got to train them to want to become a Talmid Chacham, to be a rabbinic scholar. Not enough just to be what we call an Eruch Hayid. To be a Jew that, keeps Torah mitzvahs. They're honest, right? They're honest in business. They stand for truth. They work hard. Very good. But you have to get them to strive for more. The Seb's Rebbe Chanan would take it one step further. Since the parent has that obligation to give that over to their kids, not just to be a former Baal boss, but to be someone who's going to strive in Torah mitzvahs even if they're working, to be a big rabbinic scholar. If you don't do that, you don't fulfill the obligation of a shinantam livanech. You don't fulfill that obligation. Because why are you striving for the least? Why are you telling them that's the pinnacle you can reach? That's not the pinnacle. The pinnacle is, work your way through Shas. Try and go through everything you can. That's the pinnacle. Why are you striving to be middle of the road, if that? Not even that. You learn a little bit here, a little bit there. You're kuvei itim, you have certain times you learn during the day, very good. That's the only permissibility to work, is that you have to learn also. That's the only permissibility. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting and learning, right? So a person's married, his wife needs help. Okay, you help to a certain extent, then you're going to go learn. But if you're not striving to be a rabbinic scholar, and the father's not trying to get that into their heads, it's just enough that they work, they give charity, they do other things very good. So says Rabbi Chanan, you don't strive for that, you don't fulfill that obligation. Shinantam livanecha. Powerful thing. Yeah. I saw this earlier and I was like, wow. Because we're not striving for mediocrity here. Even if you got to work, doesn't matter. You got an obligation beyond that. You're going to say, I don't have the head, I don't have the time. Yeah, what's God going to show you? You're going to say you didn't have time. Oh, but you had time to be on your phone at this amount of time. You had time to watch this. You had time to do other things. You didn't have time to learn. That's not going to be an excuse. Yeah. If you really didn't have time to learn, very good. Then God will give you a free pass. But He's going to show you all the time you wasted when you could have learned. I'm not talking about where you're sick and you couldn't keep your eyes open, this and that. Okay. Other times you can't learn. Very good. But he's going to show you all the time you wasted. That's going to be bad. That a person, you don't want to open your mouth on that. You'll get slaughtered for that. Oh, you had enough time to read the newspaper. You had enough time to check all your emails. You had enough time to do this, over a lifetime. I'm not talking about just a day or a week. See this over a lifetime. We could have years of wasted time. Years. See, that's the scary proposition after a person dies. What their potential could have been. And God's going to say, you could have done this, you could have done that. Because I didn't have time. God said, oh, you didn't have time? Let me play back the video here. Let me show you. This is what you did over here. This is what you did over here. Now, I'm God. I can figure this out in a split second. I'm gonna add up all the seconds and all the hours. Right? Sorry, all the seconds and all the minutes. Right? So imagine it comes to a calculation: 1,250,927 wasted minutes. Right? You do the math. That's like a decade, right? Or whatever. However it works out. You gotta say you didn't have time? I'm showing you right now, during times you could have learned and you didn't, and you were doing other things, you just wasted 15 years of your life. Not a couple of days, not a couple of weeks, 15 years. Now, imagine that pure soul now would understand the absolute truth. You're crying over it. I don't know how that works. Yeah, you're in pain. That's what part of Ganem is. That's what part of feeling the pain. Wasted. Even if you get there, even if you haven't forced the world to come, you could have had something greater, or God forbid, you're going somewhere else. Well, you're not going to use that as an excuse, because God's going to pull up your records and say, let's see. You did this over here. You did that over there. Let's add up. Let's tally all the minutes. Wasted. Person can, for most people, not holding by Torah mitzvahs, it's like almost their whole life wasted. Wasted. Sad. How are we going to answer that? How would a person answer such a thing? You're answering to the King of Kings. You're not going to be able to answer. That's part of the embarrassment. Someone failed after they died. What their real potential could have been. Right? So there are a lot of questions. I'll take them in a second. The famous Medrash. Medrash says, fisherman dies. So one of the first questions the person gets asked is, did you learn Torah? Question, if you learn Torah, you are honest in business. Whatever comes first, but he asked him, did you learn Torah? He said, you didn't give me the mind to learn Torah. You didn't give me a mind. I wasn't smart enough to learn Torah. God said, okay, what was your occupation? So I was a fisherman. So he said, what did you do? How'd you make a living? He said, oh, I had these nets. I put them together. I went here, I went there. I was able to trap all these fish, and whatever, and that's how I did it. Now, so God said, I bet the same God who gave you the brains, to be able to make a living by trapping fish, probably gave you the same brains to be able to sit and learn Torah also. And what did the fisherman say to that? Nothing. Sat there and cried. Yeah. Of course you're going to cry. You're going to say, you didn't give me the brains. God said, oh, of course I gave you the brains. I gave you the brains to learn a lot of Torah. You didn't. If you could do this, you could do that. Doesn't mean it was going to go easy. You could have done it. Right? This has been ingrained in my head for a long time. For many, many years. About potential. Nobody knows what their potential is. Nobody knows. Can't rest on your laurels for 1 second. Because we could all have greater potential. Yeah. And what does that greater potential do? Makes us more obligated. But you got to want it. We can waste our potential. A lot of people waste their potential. It's too hard. They're not into it. It's, the evil inclination takes them away. That's what happens. They give into it once, yeah, no big deal. Give into it twice, no big deal. By the third time, evil inclination owns you. Makes that now part of your psyche. So it's part of my psyche. How can I fight it? We mentioned this many times. You're right. Once it's part of your psyche, it's hard. It's very hard to fight once it's part of you. But if you did it to yourself, you get no excuses. Now you got to try and reverse it. As we always say, it's like taking, 2-3 steps backwards. So if I took, let's say, 40 steps backwards on a given day, I got to take 40 steps forward to get to 0. Imagine over years, decades. How many steps we took backwards, but did we ever get back to zero? Or are we still in the negative? I think it's that this mitzvah, that mitzvah, maybe that overcomes. Yeah, it could. But you can't continually take steps backwards. Because it's much harder to get back to zero when you do that. All right, let me take questions here. There are a lot of questions here. Someone asks, Musar ethics of your fathers. Where can you find a copy of Musar? Musar is ethics in general. Musar you get from a lot of different books. Ethics of our fathers is just one aspect, right? One aspect of oral law, right? Talks about ethics. Where can you get ethics from? Very simple. Path of the Just. That's a book of ethics. The Way of the Righteous. That's a book of ethics. Gates of Repentance is a book of ethics. Musar is just a general category of ethics. And, ethics of our fathers, it's all about ethics, right? It's not the only thing. Definitely not the only thing. But it is, it is a, somewhat of a base. But there are plenty of other books also. Plenty of other books. It's not, Musar is just, in short, Musar is just a general thing. Right? It's just a general thing about ethics. But there are plenty of books out there that speak about ethics, right? We said, Path of the Just, you got the Ways of the Righteous, you got the Gates of Repentance. There are books in Jewish philosophy. Now, there could be books in Jewish philosophy also speak about ethics, but they're not necessarily about ethics per se. Not exclusively about ethics. I mean, there could be a lot of parts of it. I mean, Chovos Levav was all about ethics also. But it's much more intricate than that. It's talking about how to live life. Yeah. In many ways. Someone says, we're still living with the Muna and our best foot forward, right? But we have tests. Everybody has tests. Tests are not easy to go through. But, at a certain level, we're all lacking in a Muna. Because if we weren't lacking in a Muna, we have no questions. We wouldn't have any questions. I think the statement goes, I've been getting it wrong a little bit, but, someone who has a Muna has no questions. Someone who's an atheist has no answers. Yeah. If you want answers, you can find them. If you have an agenda, you don't want answers. Right? Essentially. Someone asks, okay, totally unrelated here. Joseph seemingly did this when he asked for the cup of shame to put in good words. He was punished, yeah, but he on his level. Joseph was on an unbelievable level. Right? No question. Mentioned today, spoke at a Kiddush, whatever, my granddaughter. One of the things I mentioned was very interesting. Joseph seemed to forgive the brothers for whatever he did, for whatever they did. On a very high level here. He said, what? Am I God, put me through this and, only to save you. Seemingly, he forgave them for everything. Totally forgave them for everything. Right? So Marabi asks in the name of the Or Chaim HaKadosh and the Reinu B'Chai, and he says, if that's true and he really forgave them, then why were 10 great rabbis killed in a horrific way? What we call the Asar Arugei Malchus. And a lot of other things that happened throughout history because of the sale of Joseph by the brothers. In other words, if he really forgave them, the whole thing should be wiped out. They brought down from a Chidah. The Chidah said, one of the great rabbis more than 500 years ago, 600 years ago, the Chidah says, this is before the Torah was given. Before the Torah was given, even if you tell me the patriarchs and their kids kept all the Torah, whatever that means, before it was given. But he says like this. He says, that's true. That's true. Look, before the Torah was given, it's a whole different thing. Because before the Torah was given, why were they keeping Torah mitzvahs? To do Ratzon Hashem. To do God's will. And if they weren't doing God's will, they're held to a higher standard. Very true. But if they're not doing God's will, it comes under the category of desecration of God's name. So it's a chilul Hashem. Now, the brothers thought they did the right thing. They tied that Joseph was a pursuer, was a rodev. They condemned him to death. They said if he's real, if his dreams really are true, they put him in a pit. See if the scorpions and the snakes are going to sting him or not. They were too cruel at some level. At some level, even though they claimed he deserved to die. Right? Very hard to understand this whole thing. But the Chidah says what happened over here was that God wanted them to do Ratzon Hashem before the Torah is given. To do his will. If they're not doing his will, they're doing the opposite. That's the desecration of God's name. The punishment over there, Marabi says, based on the Chidah, is what? Why they get punished? Because of desecration of God's name at their level. So he's on a much higher level, Joseph. No question. The fact that he asked the chamberlain to remember him. So at the end of that parsha, it says, not only did he remember, he forgot. What do you mean? If he didn't remember, he forgot. Right? That's the same thing. Right? It's the same exact thing. So it means God made him forget for 2 years. He had to sit there for 2 years. Another 2 years. That was the punishment because it was a much higher level. Shouldn't have gone that far. Right? Totally shouldn't have gone that far. Because, for us, that wouldn't have been a question. That's doing our status. That's putting our best foot forward. That 100% is putting our best foot forward. Okay. For him, he's on a much higher level. So he got taken to task. He did too much. When by just about anybody else, it wouldn't have been an issue. Someone here says, I hate the phrase, you only live once. Well, the soul, can come back a bunch of times. It's true. That is 100% true. Right? But yeah, people are going to say, like I heard someone tell me a number of years ago, when I die, I'm going 6 feet under. I said, yeah, because if I'm right, you're in trouble. If you're only going to the ground, very good, nothing else happens to you. Yeah. It's also a stupid thing to say. I mentioned about the next words, and what's going to happen when you get judged in the next words. Like, oh, I'm not worried about that. So, and the person said, I mentioned about life after death. He goes, can you give me the short version? 30 seconds. If I knew I wouldn't have lasted 10 seconds. So I said, here's the link, watch it. Did he watch it? Don't know. Right? But that's that. Somebody asks that the late Chazon Ish, Avram Yeshaya Karl, it's a blessed memory, Torah Giants, the last generation, right? Said we have to be quick. I guess proactive, fight laziness, indifference. Yeah. What happens if you don't? Right? What happens if you don't? Because if you don't, what's going to happen is it'll just come back to bite you. 100% will come back to bite you. And something it's hard to fight. The more we do things by habit, habits are hard to break. And a lot of these things that you do are destructive. We see a lot of images, a lot of things that makes us dull. Makes it harder for us to learn. And besides, these images never go away. They're in our circuitry, so to speak. They never totally disappear. Even if they don't come up for years, doesn't matter. They're there somewhere buried. Come up eventually. God forbid. But, it's definitely there. Someone asks, how do you know when you put your best foot forward? You want to sit back and let God drive the vehicle. You always put your best foot forward. For this generation, you always put your best foot forward. Now, the question is, at that person's level, is that considered a lack of emunah? Now, it depends. Depends what level a person's on. Some people will have to do a lot of ishtak. Do a lot of putting your best foot forward. Some things a person has to, I'll give an example. A person got something to pay. They got to figure out how they're going to pay it. They know now the time is coming. Yeah. The person can say, if they do this all the time, God, you're the one in charge. I'm not putting my best foot forward. You could do that. If you do everything else like that, you never go to a doctor when you're sick, all these things, right? This is what the Vilna Gaon said. If you're on that level with everything, you don't have to put your best foot forward for nothing. Everybody else, as the Chosel Babu says, you got to put your best foot forward, but you should never think the salvation is going to come from them. Because we've seen many times. I'm not the only one. Plenty of other people have seen the same thing. And that is that even if you put your best foot forward, salvation comes from somewhere you never thought of. What I mean you never thought of, right, in general. Now, the mantra always is, God, you're the one in charge. You're 100% the one in charge, and you keep saying it over and over again. Doesn't matter how stupid you think people look at you, whatever. You keep saying it over and over and over again. I don't know what you want from me, but I'm putting my best foot forward. You're the one in charge, to take me out of it. Now, that doesn't mean you're sitting back and sipping pina coladas here. That means you're doing what it takes to try and put your best foot forward. It just doesn't mean you'll see success from it. Seeing success from it's all a different thing. And most times, again, I'm not the only one who'll say this. Plenty of people out there will say the same thing. Yeah. Their salvation came from a place never expected. Never. If you were to ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, do you think this is going to happen? They're going to answer, yeah, it was number 297. It's not even on the scale. Right? So many things. Right? So for us, we have to put our best foot forward. Now, sometimes it's putting your best foot forward too much. Maybe you got to rely on God a little bit more. So I don't think that's the case. I think the case is, unless you're holding a very high level of emunah, extremely high level of emunah, you can do less. I know somebody like this, they do minimal amounts of putting their best foot forward, and God takes care of their needs. Might not always look pretty, but he takes care of all their needs. Whenever they need. But that person's on a very high level. Most people not at that level. So we got to put our best foot forward no matter what. So the question is, you need both. You need to put your best foot forward, but you have to keep saying, it's not a contradiction, that the mantra is, God, you're the one in charge. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. But I know I can't do anything without you. I know you're the one in charge. Now, does that mean you don't put your best foot forward? No. That means you do whatever it takes. Person knows in a week's time they got a certain bill they got to pay, or who knows what's going to happen. You don't sit back and sip pina coladas. You put your best foot forward. Now, putting your best foot forward might not matter. It could be. You tried this, you tried that, you tried the other thing, nothing worked. The last day, and you keep saying, well, God, you're the one in charge. You're the one in charge. And the last day, the last second, he pulls it out in a way you didn't think. Or maybe it just things didn't come in when you thought or whatever, and now it did. See, the opposite way also. Yeah. Yeah, okay, I got this covered. This will be taken care of. And then it doesn't happen. Right? Yeah, again, a bill to pay is a very good example. Right? So a person's expecting a certain amount of money. Very good. They know where the money's coming from, or where it should be coming from, but it doesn't come. God doesn't want you to have it right now. Very good. So you say, wow, it should be coming by this date. Okay, it didn't come by this date. Should be coming by this date. Didn't come by that date. So now you get 2 days, 3 days before. But that money should have been there. So what happened? So you're getting squeezed like the bottom of the toothpaste. God's telling you, okay, you can't rely on that per se. You got to rely on me more. Say, okay. I've seen that also. You don't know. But, in that case also, not, if it's like 2-3 days before and you see this other stuff is not happening, you got to go to plan B or plan C, whatever it may be. And you just might have to. You have to have eyes in the back of your head also. But sometimes things are just not expected. And when they're not expected, a person may be lulled into sleep thinking, yeah, I got this taken care of. This should happen, that should happen. And what if both don't happen? Nah, come on, both are not going to happen. I've seen this a lot. Seen it a lot. So something else works out somehow, but not the way you expected. Right? So that would be my simple, long answer. It's not a contradiction to put your best foot forward and saying the mantra, the God, you're the one in charge, will take me out of this. You have to do something. Nobody's on that. Very few people, let's say, I'm not going to say nobody. Very few people are on that level that they're not going to put their best foot forward and just rely on God. No. You got to put your best foot forward. Yeah, for most people, putting the best foot forward is never enough. That's not going to be a lack of emunah. God thinks you're at a higher level of emunah. And having faith and belief in Him, yeah, you might be taking a task. Right? Yeah, but, it depends on the case. I think for most people, that wouldn't be an issue. There would not be a lack of emunah. You got to do what you need to do. And again, a person expecting money, they got to pay a bill. They say, I got plenty of time. I got 2 weeks. Now they got 3 days because that other money didn't come in. Yeah. And you keep saying the mantra, God, you're the one in charge. You're the one in charge. But now you got 3 days. The clock is ticking. Where are you going to get the other money from? I don't have to rely on God on that. You got to think of other ways to do it. It's crunch time. You got to think of other ways to do it. And doesn't always mean it's going to go the way you think. Yeah. Know plenty of people like that. Imagine person, I'm not going to say the promise. Well, let's say someone offered to help them for something, money-wise. So they're thinking, okay, they're going to help me with this. It's going to cost X amount. They're going to put this money in. Very good. Okay. So now what happens? Weeks later, say, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's probably going to cost, this amount. And they say, oh, really? Well, I definitely want to help you do it. You should do it. Great. And they say, I'm willing to put in a third. What do you mean a third? You thought they were going to give you the majority of it, if not all of it. Right? Or let's say you thought you were going to get 90%. Right? Let's say. You thought you were going to get 90%, they give you 10%. Now it's crunch time. Because now you're planning to do all, whatever it is. And now you have 10%. You're going to say, God, that's really funny. Ha! You're going to say, what happened? What happened over here? So where the salvation may come from in that case. But, it's something the person, let's say, has to do. So what do? Now you got a lot less time. You got a lot less time. It's called irony. Now, could be the person made a mistake. Could be they misjudged it. And they thought the person only gave a certain amount. Maybe they should have asked at the beginning. If it's going to cost this amount, would you give? They probably didn't think. They probably thought, okay, they help with this, so help with that. Yeah. But now they're saying they only give 10%. Now what? So in that case, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to sip pina coladas? No. You're gonna put the pedal to the metal to do whatever you need to do here. Because, the person didn't come through the way you thought. Now again, that could be you just got fooled. Or you misread the situation, or could be any number of things. That's when the emunah kicks in a lot. You got to say, okay, now I got this, now what? Yeah, so, it depends, I would say. I would say on that. Someone that heard a story, Yaakov, two of his servants going to die, saves them, angel of death, let's see, he complained to Pharaoh about the business of the last years of his life. Okay. Yeah, so what's the question? Should remind him of the good he did that's hard to explain. It's hard to understand. Yaakov, one of the few people in the world who want to get judged according to divine judgment. No mercy. He suffered a lot in life. So, Pharaoh looks at him and says, wow, you're so old. It's like the first time anyone ever got old. Right? When they, they're close to death. No one else this happened to except, it happened to him. So it's like, how old are you? Looked at him and was like, you don't look like everybody else. So he says his life was bitter. I mean, he chose it. He chose a difficult path. Okay. He wanted to be judged like Rabbi Akiva also, according to divine justice. Very few people will be able to live that way. Okay. But to say his life is bitter? His life was hard. Where's the Hakar Zatov? Where's the gratitude? Right? Where's the, he says that, most of his life was bad. Where's the gratitude? Yeah, that's an obvious question. Talking about Yaakov Avinu, you're not talking one of us. They're going to say he didn't have gratitude. He had the greatest gratitude. Greatest gratitude, right? That has to be understood properly. But to say he didn't have gratitude is hard to understand. That's why I can't look at the verse, the verse in general as, look at it literally. Because that would go against everything we know. He's a pillar of truth. Look what he went through. Had a lot of goodness. Like God says he's going to take care of his needs. He's got tremendous gratitude. He saved him, from Lavan, saved him from Esav. Saved him from a lot of things. No gratitude? Hard to imagine. Hard to imagine. Yeah. Why does the logo have Hebrew letters? I don't know. That I don't know. 1 second. How do you break up parts of the daily schedule? Some, what they do, if you learn the Torah portion of the week, they learn the first part, Sheni, right? The first Aliyah, right? They go through it, go through Rashi, whatever. Next day they go through Shlishi, right? From Sheni to Shlishi, first to the second Aliyah, and learn that till they get to the end, Thursday, and then eventually finish the whole parsha. Some people go through it once. I mean, the obligation Shnei Mikra V'Echad Targum, right, is meaning that you read the Torah twice during the week, and you read the Targum, the Aramaic translation, or people learn Rashi. Right, it's probably better to learn Rashi if you don't understand Aramaic. And even if you do understand Aramaic, it's probably good to learn Rashi also. Many bring down, you learn Rashi, you get a lot of fear of heaven, by learning. So it depends. Some break it up systematically. Other people, learn, chunks at a time. Maybe learn the first couple of years, Shani and Shlishi, the first two or one, and then do it day by day. Do it and delve into it day by day. It takes smaller parts, and break it up that way. Right. So again, how many verses are going to be, in the first Aliyah, probably 20, maybe less, maybe 10, maybe 15. From the first to the second, from the second to the third, there could be 10, there could be 20 also. So again, you could break it up day by day. Day by day, do it that way. Someone mentions Chabad.org as everything. Okay, that's also true. I'm just saying in general. Some people break it up. Somebody mentions the Gemara from Ramban, very good book of Musar. Yeah, also. Someone has so much to learn. You can see already ingrained. Yeah, listen. Whatever a person learns at whatever level, it's step by step. There's no circumventing anything here. Right? In other words, I've been looking for shortcuts for years, never found. You got to take it step by step. Right? Everything you learn are building blocks. First thing is to know, what we have to do, what the stories are, this and that. Another level is, I heard this, I heard that, it's a contradiction. How do you work out the contradictions? Different level of learning. But every time we learn, everything we learn are building blocks. For sure, they're building blocks. Right? So, even if you got a little bit now, next year is going to be different. The year after that will be different. Person will see, unless, it's impossible not to see spiritual growth. Doesn't mean we're changing character traits like no tomorrow and we're becoming great spiritual people. Doesn't necessarily mean that. What it means is we're working hard, to learn as much as we can. And the more we learn, the more we see obviously, that we see what we don't know, but we also see, if you look at like the last 2 years or the last 5 years, you see how much knowledge that you really have, and how much knowledge we really need to get, right? But essentially, if someone is doing it right, they see growth. They see things that they've learned. They remember things that they learned. So everything you learn is a stepping stone, no question, right? No question. It's a stepping stone, it's a building block. So you take all those blocks at some point and gain a lot of knowledge. But knowledge is not just, for knowledge's sake. Knowledge is about change and about wanting, it's about wanting to change. Someone asked, it's common for a person to have problems with Hashem came, dangling carrots, making it like the different ways they can help. Why does he do it? Yeah, question you have to understand, which a lot of people don't get, but this is the truth. Any person comes out of idolatry or about you, someone who, wasn't religious becomes religious. The playing field right now is totally different than when you started, than where you were before. Why? Right? What's the reason? So the reason I would say is very simple. Because when a person's an idolater or doing whatever they're doing, the bottom line is God deals with you one way. He might give, you did one mitzvah, God has to reward you, so you might get, a lot of reward, already used up in this world, etc. Once a person though, you come out of idolatry, wherever you're coming from, and now a person has a different mentality. Their mentality, they understand what they're supposed to do now. They understand the path they're supposed to take. Once they understand the path they're supposed to take, it's a different world. God looks at you differently. Why? Because now you want to be close to the king. Coming closer to the king has a lot of ramifications. If you're far away from the king, you're the ball boy, the water carrier, whatever, one thing, God will deal with you in a certain way. If you're second in command to the king, or you're going up the ranks, so to speak, you got more responsibility. If you got more responsibility, God's looking at you in a totally different way. So it's not a question of like, yeah, he's dangling carrots and he's doing this. He's looking at you in a totally different way. Sometimes, or a lot of times, it's all a test, right? We're all being tested. But there are times where maybe, I don't know, a person thought they were too great, more great than they were. And God's going to say, I'm going to knock you down now. I'm going to put you on your knees. I'm going to make you realize. Yeah. Your situation can only be helped by me. Now, some people realize that more, some people less. When things are going good, we don't realize it. Because we're going to say things are going good. How many people have money or even serious money or whatever it may be? They're looking for God. I was telling someone that Friday night. So, how many non-Jews who convert have serious money? Not too many. Not too many. Because they're looking for truth. Truth and money don't necessarily go hand in hand. The Gemara in Brachos says, person doesn't inherit both worlds, this world and the next, meaning they'll have money and they'll be big rabbinic scholar at the same time. Doesn't go. Usually it doesn't go. Doesn't have to be a total contradiction, but it normally doesn't go. So you either get one or the other. But I said, how many secular Jews became religious, and still had serious money? Very few. I was just thinking, I know somebody that was Morris Smith. I think anyone's ever heard of Morris Smith. He was in charge of the Magellan Fund, I think from Fidelity, right? He had a lot of money, became a religious Jew, right? That's rare. Why is it rare? Because the prophecy is, the book of Deuteronomy, the prophecy is that when the Jews are going to have great wealth. It's going to be a test. That's the test of this last generation. Test of great wealth. In the test of great wealth, God's going to say, are you going to go with me, or are you going to spit in my face because you're going to say I don't need you? Yeah. For most people, they're going to spit in his face and say I don't need you. They get everything, full bank account, whatever. What do they need God for? So that idea that we're pushed up against the wall, sometimes gonna, we might have done something gaivadik. We might have done something, thinking, being conceited, where God says, "Oh, you think you're so great? You think this? I'm gonna put you on your knees. I'm gonna make you realize it's only me to come to." Now, for a lot of people, they see that on a daily basis. Doesn't matter what they've done or whatever. That's the way God deals with them. They want to see prayer. Why were the imahos barren? Rivka, Rachel, Sarah. Why were they barren? Right? Ben Bachai, others say, because God loves the prayers of the righteous. Doesn't mean God is a masochist by any stretch, but he loves the prayers of the righteous. Because when a person's in trouble, you pray totally differently. If you got a lot of money in the bank, you're not worried about too many things. You don't pray the same than if your life depends on it. You got bills to pay, you got a day to pay it, you got no money in the bank, you're going to pray like no tomorrow. It's a test, for sure it's a test. But the point is that when a person comes to truth, God treats you in a totally different way. Now, people may say it's not fair. Life's not about being fair. We're going to do what we have to do. But at the end of the day, what do I see? You want to be close to the king, there's payback. You want to be close to the king, you mess up, the repercussions are much more severe. They are much more severe no matter what. Nobody wants to hear it. I can tell you that. They say, well, keeping Torah mitzvahs, I've seen the light. I'm coming to Torah mitzvahs. How come you treat me this way? A lot of people could ask the question. It's not a fair question. It's not a fair question because God's looking at you in a different way. When you're closer to the king, there's greater responsibility. If you're far away from the king, God's like, here's $1 million, don't bother me. Here, you got this, don't bother me. You're not going to pray. God doesn't want your prayers. Not interested in your prayers. What do you think? The Reform and Conservative movement have billions. Billions. Why? Because they don't want to hear any of their prayers. He just wants them to go, wants to get rid of them. Why by Orthodox institutions? It's like pushing dimes. Heads of yeshivas and other places, they have to go place to place, to raise money for their institutions. For different reasons. One is they have to go to these places, give strength to people there, give classes there, and all that. Because everything would be easy. They wouldn't go anywhere. It'd be very easy to stay where they are. Do what they're doing. And the Reform and Conservative movement got billions wasted for who knows what, planting trees in Israel and who knows what. Totally wasted. So God says here, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't want you to pray to me. I don't want you to have a connection to me. I'm going to give you everything and say scram. He's going to say, get out of my face. That's what he's going to say. Well, we can all ask the question. Because anyone who comes in this process, they don't have it easy. Some people have it easier, some people don't. People usually have a difficult time. People took my classes. I had someone, the first week, problem with the fridge. Second week, the washing machine. Fourth week, problem with the car. Got a frantic phone call. Like, Rabbi, does this happen by people take your class? I said, yeah, by you. It happened a little bit earlier. You looked at differently. God is looking at you differently. That's the point. So you're right. It's a test. It's definitely a test, but the point of it all is he wants you to work on a moon. He's dealing with you in a totally different way. That's why it happens that way. That's why it happens that way. One thing to keep in mind also, when it comes to money, someone here points out, waiting for money for 8 months. I remember, I was waiting money for something, and, one of my rabbis told me, money comes in when God wants it to come in. It's called be'ito ubizmanu. At that time. I go, yeah, but I need that money 2 months ago. He said, it doesn't matter. Whatever you needed it is irrelevant. You got it when God wanted you to have it. I was supposed to get, someone said I was supposed to get it 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago. And it finally came in or it didn't come in because he didn't want you to have it. Why did he want you to have it then? I can't answer. The only thing I can say is, when a person's expecting money and it doesn't come, aren't you praying a little bit harder? I think you're praying a lot stronger. You're saying, I need this money. God can send the money any way he wants. Doesn't mean through them. He can send it a different way. A lot of times maybe it happens that way. again, I've heard this many times, myself included. Thought money was going to come in one place. I say, okay, see where it comes in, first, and it came from a place I didn't expect at all. At all. We call it God's iron. I'm like, okay. I'll give you an example. I put my best foot forward with something, recently, not expecting anything. Nothing. Person says, oh yeah, of course. This thing just came in today. Just came in like, I don't know, 6 months ago. Who knows? If I would have asked, 6 months ago, something else would have happened maybe 6 months ago. Fine. I want to say at the right place at the right time? I don't know. God put it in my mind. I would just send a text to someone, and that's what happened. Was I expecting it? Definitely not. Not at all. God said, okay, I'm going to throw you a bone in it. Okay. Very good. Not going to complain. Totally unexpected. Totally unexpected. That's the way it happens a lot of the time. I'm not the only one who says this. I've heard other people say it. Many, many other people say it. You think it's going to come from here, it's going to come from there, forget it. Coming from somewhere else you least expected. And you wouldn't have thought about it in a million years. I'm not going to say it's the majority of the time, whatever, that's what happens. It happens in places where you didn't expect. Yeah. Any other questions? I mean, you got to see everything in many ways, right? Everything in many ways is a test. There's no question. There's absolutely no question. It's a question how we deal with it. It's a question how much we realize God's the one in charge. And again, I've seen it, other people have seen it. There are times where God is telling you beyond the shadow of a doubt, you have to rely on me. You don't have a choice. You have no choice over here. And what's the reason? Because he wants you to know that he's the one in charge. And I think part of the reason also is to give this over to others. For others to say, you're down and out, you don't know what to do, this and that. Right? What's God showing you? Just like he showed us by World War II. Can't rely on man. You got to put your best foot forward. You got to rely on him. He's the one in charge. That's it. Financially, it's very easy to see him anyway. Think about it. Chips are down. You got bills to pay. According to nature, you have no idea where it's coming from. You have no idea. Now, you put out fillers, you put out this, try and collect money from this one, for that, whatever it is. Is that the way the salvation's going to come? Maybe. But what's God telling you? You're right, you put your best foot forward, but he's telling you, I'm the one in charge here. I can make it or I can break it. See, here in Israel, we're dependent on rain. If we don't get enough rain, for years, there was a drought. They kept pumping, water from the Sea of Galilee, and they kept drawing the line lower and lower, so they finally couldn't pump anymore. And 1 year before it got almost to that point, the black line is like a red line, keep drawing the red line down, down, down to get to the black line. The black line's like, no, you cannot do this anymore. That's too low. And what did God do 1 year? They're 3-4 years. It just didn't rain that much. What did God do? In one winter, fill to the top. 3.5 meters plus of rain. I mean, rain almost every day. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Sometimes you get enough rain in 1 month and 1 day. Yeah. So what happened? God said, this is what I'm going to do. You didn't get it for 3 years. You didn't deserve it. I'm going to give you now one shot. I remember I had to make a wedding 3 years ago. Sorry, 3 years ago. So between me and my wife, nice chunk of money came in first 2 months of the year. Very lean after that, for a number of months. But that money came in and paid for the wedding. So what did God do? He gave it to me at the beginning. instead of schlepping it out over months. Gave it to me in one shot. In one shot. Why? Can't answer. I mean, the answer is he wanted me to have the money then. That's the answer. Yeah. So he spread it out. Gave a lot of money at one point. And then like it trickled after that. Okay. So then you make a calculation of how much you were supposed to have over that time. He just gave it to you up front. Right? Famous story. Someone comes to my Rebbe or Rebbe goes to someone, for, donation for something. A rich guy is like, I can't give. It's very lean right now. I was doing very good at the beginning, but now it's very lean. So Rebbe said, what do you mean you can't give? God just gave it to you at the beginning. He gave you a lot of money the first 2 months. The next few months, okay, pretty lean, let's say. You're not making a lot of money, very good, but you already made the money at the beginning. So why can't you give? We don't look at it that way, but that's the truth. Gave it to you at the beginning. So can God do that in the blink of an eyelash? Sure. Should it be expected? So you can say God can do anything. You're right. He can do anything when we least expect it. That's what happens. A lot of the time. Right? A lot of the time. Right? A lot of the time that happens. Someone asks, how much is a Jewish wedding? Depends. In Israel, it's a lot cheaper than in the States. Unless you buy an apartment for your kids and you put yourself in hock, which, Israelis do that. They'll mortgage their apartment a number of times to pay for weddings. A friend of mine told me he did it twice or 3 times. Not just pay for a wedding, but, for down payment for an apartment. So a wedding, you can get away. I mean, very cheap wedding, about $10,000, maybe more. Maybe about $15,000, depending, about $10,000, let's say. You can make a nice wedding, but you're not buying a house for your kid. And, and here in Israel, 70% or more own their apartment, which is pretty miraculous. Definitely pretty miraculous in a lot of ways. But in the States, it could cost you a lot more. It's just because everything's more expensive. They're not necessarily, giving money for down payment, but they're paying that on a wedding. Even though they made decrees how much a person should, spend. You can spend $50,000 on a wedding in the States. Easy. But, spend less. No reason to spend that kind of money. That's crazy. $50,000, you can do a lot with $50,000 in Israel. Spend it on a wedding. It's the same food. Some more, some less. I mean, people go crazy. Well, they made decrees. I mean, we can afford $50,000 if you're making good money. In Israel, you can do things a lot cheaper. Definitely, you can do things a lot cheaper. But still, people in Israel making less money, so even $10,000 is a lot. Yeah, it's true. Here where I live, if you put money in a certain thing, for your kids, from I think when they're 2 or 3 or whatever it is. So then they'll give you, when they get married after, 18 years, 20 years, whatever it may be. So they'll give you a loan up to, a certain amount based on the money you put in. And then, they'll give you good terms to pay it back. So, that's a benefit. And a lot of people have done that. But whatever, I know someone who made 3 weddings in a year. Person that has no money. I know this person has no money. Where are they getting the money from? It's a good question. I'm just talking about making the wedding. I'm not talking about anything else. It's the wedding itself, I'm not including, that Shabbos as well. They gotta put money out for people come and there's food and whatever. You got that. It's I would say between $10,000 and $15,000. You're gonna say it's not a lot, but you're making a lot less money. And then you got weddings every year, every other year, something like that. I made 3 weddings in 5 years. Each one was its own miracle. That's the miracle. The funny thing is that you go to wedding halls, they're all packed every night. How are people doing it? The Satmar Rebbe once said the biggest miracle was not the 6-day war. Biggest miracle is how outer Orthodox Jews in Israel marry off their kids. That's a big miracle. Even if everything's less, doesn't matter. Compared to the States and other places. It is less for sure. But people are making less. Unless you're in high tech. But everyone else is making less. So yeah, it is. It is. It's hard enough to make ends meet as it is. That throws everything off. That 100% throws everything off. Because if you're struggling as it is, where's the other money coming from? So someone told me one of the differences between Israel and America is that Israel has more gemachim, more places to borrow money from, but you got to pay it back also. Can't go from one place to pay, for another place, this, that. You got to pay it all back eventually. Yeah, but it's a huge miracle. It's no, it's no question. Someone asked in the comment to have ceremony under a chuppah, ksuva, but without celebration. Yeah, I mean the whole point is to have celebration, right? Does that mean it has to be in a hall? I mean, weather depending, not necessarily. I mean, a hall can cost an arm and a leg also, depending how much. But the whole point is to have celebration. Unless it's, let's say, a second marriage, then it's not as. If it's the first marriage, it's a totally different thing. If it be a second marriage, yeah, celebration's less, a lot less. You're not going to rent a hall necessary for it. You wouldn't. I mean, I mean, it depends. Depends how young the person is or whatever. I went to a second marriage by somebody. There's only a handful of people there. It wasn't a big thing. It was not a big thing. They didn't rent a big hall, whatever. It was very. I mean, they were much older. Well, let's say someone got married, they got divorced very quickly or shortly thereafter. They get married again a couple years later. Most likely, they're probably making a similar type of wedding they made the first time around. Most likely. But I mean, someone's much older, they're not doing that. But you don't get away without a celebration. I mean, listen, you can do things in a much cheaper way. Much, much cheaper way. But it's, is what most people do. How they do it? Good question. Now, I did it 4 times. Each one was its own miracle. Each one's its own miracle. So I can say, someone told me I got a lot of dollars. You got to tell me how you did it. I didn't buy apartments for my kids. I didn't have money. If I had, I would have. I don't want. One of my kids bought an apartment. Or actually, 2 of my kids actually bought apartments. One, the other side had a lot of money, whatever. But one of my other kids bought an apartment. They didn't have a lot of money. They scrimped. They got. They got some help. Bought something up north, and whatever's much cheaper, than being around here where I am. But still, it's not an easy thing. People have to move further out. Things are less expensive. Okay, but even so, some people would say you got to put yourself in debt to do it. Even if I knew how to do that, I wouldn't do it. That's why someone told me years ago, your kids will marry families of similar kids. That's what will happen. And that's exactly what's happened. Yeah, you pledge something, if you can help for a few years or something, there's that. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it doesn't work out. But in the end, one of the things I said at this Kiddush was that, I know this family a long time. A lot of my kids know a lot of their kids. And this and that. When you see families blend together, it's a huge thing. It's not a given. It's definitely not a given. 2 families grow up differently, different standards, different things. They get along. It's a bonus. But someone told me years ago, it's a bonus. I've seen it. Well, I've seen, a lot of my kids marry, get along tremendously with the other side. And the kids have blended and, very close, whatever. That's you can't ask for more than that. You could, but that's being a pig. It's a huge thing. The last thing I said, gave a blessing to my new granddaughter. That when everyone gets along, it's huge. It's not something to take granted. Not at all. But I've seen the other way also. In different ways. So, a huge thing to be thankful for. But yeah, where does money come from? It's a good question. That's a very good question. Somebody here mentioned soldiers having went into the field. Yeah, been saying that. Someone asked how things going here. Well, it's been quiet. Should open my mouth, but where I am, it's been quiet. No missiles here. More hitting Tel Aviv and up north and down south. That's where the missiles have really been hitting. A lot up north and a lot down south as well. But I mean, where I am is relatively quiet. And hopefully it stay that way. But yeah, it's going to be a long thing. It's not going to be, not going to, it's going to be long term. They took care of the north in Gaza. They're working on the south now, which is, it should be easier, but still they're, going through all these tunnels, and still it's very soldiers getting killed. It's terrible, but it's definitely better. It's definitely better than it was, but who knows? We need a lot of prayers here. No, no question. And one of the things, I mentioned by this Kiddush is, it's kind of bittersweet. You want to celebrate, person has a, child, grandchild, whatever. You want to celebrate at the same time. It's a war. And people getting killed. And you got missiles flying all over the place. Yeah, it's a scary time. It's scary times, no question. But hopefully, they take care of business, do what they need to do, and hopefully, it ends shortly. But the question is what's going to happen the day after, and how they're going to keep peace there, and whatever. So, like, a lot of questions we don't know. But relatively speaking, right now, at least where I am, is relatively quiet. But things can change. Things can change the blink of an eyelash here also. No, my daughter's not with me anymore. Her husband's back. He's out of Gaza. He's done. One of his brothers is out also. I just spoke to him today. Sorry about the Kiddush. So he's also done. He's got one other brother there. I don't know when he's going to be out, but yeah, my daughter went back home when he came back probably about a month ago, more than a month ago. Then my other daughter came to stay with me after she gave birth. She gave birth like a month early. So yeah, it's like a revolving door. But Baruch Hashem, now we're back to normal, whatever normal here is. They said a lot of things to be thankful for. But again, it's like, there's a certain mood here that it's hard. I went to a wedding a few weeks ago. Whatever. It's very festive, very lively, but still, you get this thing hanging over your head. It's called the war. It's like people are dying and you have families displaced, and whatever. It's hard. I don't think there's any question. But again, we're in it for the long haul. It's not gonna finish overnight, by any stretch. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna stop here. Do this every Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Israel time. Tomorrow I'll be giving a class on the book of Leviticus chapter 17. That'll be 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion and Judaism on Facebook, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion and Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on the Torah portion of the week, Q&As, ethics of our fathers, controversial issues, book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com, whichever is good. Middle of the day, end of the day, depending on where you are. And